UFC Fight Night 157, Shenzhen China, Andrade versus Zhang is a shit card, first of all. But we're going to go through the entire thing, giving our predictions from the first fight on the card until the main event. I am warning you right now, I don't know half of these names and half of these people in general. So my betting, if there was one card I want to tell you guys not to listen to my predictions on, it may be this one. Against some bigger names, listen to those predictions, but half of them are just going to be stereotypical borderline racism. Okay, and we're going to go from the first fight here. Rosa versus Lara. Lara pretty undefeated. I'm going with the undefeated fighter here. I like undefeated people. It shows they've got something. 11-3 versus 6-0. Let me look at the little tail of the tape here. They're both young. Lara I'm overdoing that surname. Poropico is a good fighter. 6-0. Well done. Yeah, I'm going with her. Damir Ismagulov versus Thiago Moises. This is actually a good fight. I am going to go with... difficult already, boys. I am going to go with Damir Ismagulov. I feel like I'm going to go with him. He's older. Normally, I like to go with a younger fighter, but this guy's 12-3. He has done bits in the UFC. Lost to Benil Dariush, of course. I am going to go with Damir Ismagulov. 2 fights in the UFC. 2-fight win streak in the UFC. He's won all his fights in the UFC is what I'm trying to say here. He gets the job done by decision over Thiago Moises. Back to the card. Jung versus Jamahal Hill. I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill. I really am. I think he's got what it takes. Very similar framed guys. You got Jang Da-un 10-2 versus Jamahal Hill 6-0. He's from the Dana White Contender Series, I remember. He's a savage. I am going to go with Jamal Hill. And he got the finish in the Contender Series, right? I'm going to go with him. Very athletic. Gets the job done. Normally when it's at home and you go to someone's hometown, you normally want to pick the guys that are fighting in their hometown. Because the UFC's kind of brought them in there to win in their hometown. Get some hype behind them in their home country. But here, the scene is so underdeveloped for the UFC. And the fighters from China that... If you're any good in East Asia, you're in 1FC. You know, if you're any good and you're up for grabs, that's bad. If you're any good whatsoever in Asia, you're in 1FC or you're in Ryzen or you're in any of these other promotions. But if you're still up for grabs, it's normally a bad sign because there's so many options for them to go into promotions in Eastern Asia or in Asia in general. And the fact that they're up for grabs for the UFC to take, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. So I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill. Su Madureji versus Andre Sukumtar. I'm going against Andre Sukumtar. I think he's the dumbest fighter in the fucking game. I think he's complete dog shit. And I'm going to go with Su Madureji here. 23 years old. I'm going to go with him. I think he gets the job done. He's got the reach advantage. I believe in him. Su Madureji beats Andre Sukumtar easily. Park Jung-yong versus Anthony Hernandez. I like Anthony Hernandez. I think he's a savage. I think he's a beast. 25 years old. I'm going to go with him here. He did just lose to Marcus Perez, but I do think he's very good. He's a very good fighter, and I think he's going to be overlooked here. I am going to go with Anthony Hernandez. I believe in him. Kenan Song versus Derek Krantz. Derek Krantz had Luque in some kind of trouble in the first round of their fight. He got brought into the UFC off of Dana White's looking for a fight. He beat the guy that they were originally looking at, and Derek Krantz went in there and shut him down and pieced the shit out of him. I am going to go with Derek Krantz here. Normally, I don't like the older guy with a sour record, but I am going to go with Derek Krantz because, you know, Kenan Song has had some debatable losses in the UFC. He won his UFC debut against a guy who was 4-2. I am going to go with Derek Krantz. I think he gets Kenan Song out of there in the first round by KO. Derek Krantz for the win on the early prelims headliner. Moving on to the main card. Yanan Wu versus Mizuku Inoue. I'm going to go with Yanan Wu. I really am. I think she gets the job done. Don't ask why. She has a much more pronounceable name. I'm going with Yanan Wu. She gets it done. 10-2, Yanan Wu. It's almost made... Her record's almost made for her name. Yanan Wu, 10-2. Movsar Evloev versus Mike Grundy. People are going to be thinking I'm going to pick Mike Grundy here. I'm going to go with Movsar Evloev. I like Mike Grundy. Alright, I think he's a little bit old to be jumping into the UFC at this age. He's 32. He won his UFC debut, I think, against Nadnan Amani in UFC London. He got the job done. It was a questionable stoppage, and he even got hurt and rocked in that fight as well. I am going to go with Movsar Evloev. Usually with Russians, I look at their records and I see a bunch of Russians and a bunch of shit competition on their records. If you go through the list, Zabit, there was a guy recently, Alexei Kunchenko. I picked Burns to beat Kunchenko. Because a lot of these guys that have these really buffed records coming out of Russia have fought a bunch of cans and a bunch of no-talent scrubs. And now they're in the UFC and it gets exposed out of him. But Zabit's done well in the UFC. But Kunchenko's the main example I'm looking at here. He was like 18-0 before he got into the UFC, or 20-0 or some shit. Whatever his fucking record was. And if you look through his record, he was just fighting a bunch of cans. This Movsar Evloev guy, Movsar, he's beaten some legit contenders. I feel like he's had some of the tougher competition out of a lot of guys that have come out of Russia. He's fought guys at 11-3, 11-2, similar records to him, 10-0, guys like that. I like seeing that on a record. He's the cream of the crop. And a lot of people, I'm sure, were thinking I was going to pick Mike Grundy, but I'm not going to pick Mike Grundy. I'm going to go with Movsar Evloev. I actually think he gets an early finish here as well. Because Mike Grundy, for a grappler, seems too okay to stand up with guys. I think he's going to be paying for that, especially. And he has an incel chin. So, Movsar Evloev is going to get the job done. I feel like I'm betraying my countrymen here. I'm going with Movsar Evloev getting the job done in the first or second round by TKO. Kai Kara-France versus Mark De La Rosa. I'm going with Kai Kara-France. Don't get me wrong, Mark De La Rosa is a savage. Okay? I am going to go with Kai Kara-France though. I think he's a beast. I think he's had some tough tests so far and he's skated by on some close decisions. But he's still young. And that's the thing. Some of these guys he's fought have been 30 years old. Like, this is it. They're experienced as they're going to be. They're in their prime. And he's been 26. Mark De La Rosa's 24. Losing some fights in the UFC. I feel like Kai Kara-France is going to be way more experienced. Training at a better camp with a lot of small guys at the City Kickboxing in New Zealand with Israel Adesanya. He has a lot of small guys there, like Shane Jung is a small featherweight that fights there. He's got some bantamweights in his camp. Kai Kara-France, I think, gets the job done here against Mark De La Rosa. I don't see a finish. Because since USADA, Kai Kara-France hasn't really been knocking anyone out. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but Kai Kara-France does have a 10 centimeter reach advantage. If you don't know, that's probably around 3.5 inches of reach advantage, which at flyweight is a lot. Because there's not a lot of variance in body types at flyweight, you know what I'm saying? So I am going to go with him here. I think he's going to have a huge striking advantage. I actually think he will TKO Mark De La Rosa. I'm not accusing him of steroids before these New Zealanders go crazy at me. I do think he's going to win. I think he gets the job done in the first or second round. Kai Kara-France gets the job done. Li Jingliang versus Zaleski Dos Santos. Great fight. I'm going with Zaleski Dos Santos. People underrate. Listen, if you see someone that's high up on the rankings that doesn't speak English, look into it. Eddie Bravo style, okay? Li Jingliang, very good fighter. He's beat some decent opponents. But when you look at Zaleski Dos Santos, I mean, you're talking about he comes into the UFC in 2015, loses to Nicholas Dalby, okay? Then he goes on, beats Omari Akhmedov, solid opponent who's fighting at UFC 242. Beats Kita Nakamura, which is... He's not a good opponent, but back then he was somewhat decent, still relevant, still about. You know, 2017, he goes on again, beats Lyman good win. Then he beats Max Griffin, phenomenal win. 2018, keeps the win streak going. Sean Strickland beats him. Luigi Vendramini gets 2 KOs in that year. A great year for him. One of them was a wheel kick KO as well, if I remember correctly. I'm on the fucking Zaleski Dos Santos hype train. I think he's going to KO at Li Jingliang. And if I find out that Li Jingliang's been KO'd before on his record, it's going to solidify my pick. Fuck, he hasn't. I'm still going with Zaleski Dos Santos, though. Li Jingliang, I think he's going to get TKO'd here. Or he's going to get knocked down, get back up. He's going to go through some adversity and lose a decision to Zaleski Dos Santos. And then I want to see Zaleski Dos Santos versus Santiago Ponzinibbio in Brazil at the end of the year. we're going with Zaleski Dos Santos. Okay, moving on to the main event. I'm going with Weili Zhang. I really am. I think she's going to get the job done. I like Jessica Andrade. I really do. Weili Zhang's going to be the bigger girl with the bigger reach. The only question I have is, can she go 4 and 5 rounds? But you can ask that same question about Andrade. You know, Andrade has been in some good fights, but a lot of them, you know, like women's MMA barely gets a lot of main event slots. And although Jessica Andrade has good cardio, I mean, you look for her record, she's been 5 rounds once with Joanna Jędrzejczyk and lost. Yeah, she did well, but she slowed down at the end. I'm going to go with Weili Zhang here. I really am. 19-1. The bigger girl. Dime piece as well, as far as Asians go. No offense. I'm not really into that, but I can make an exception for her. Small hands. I like it. 5'4". Comes into the UFC. Beats Danielle Taylor. Irrelevant. Jessica Aguilar. Good win. Tisha Torres. Good win. I'm going to go with Weili Zhang here. I think she gets the job done. I don't know why they've given her a title shot yet, but she's dominated everyone she's been in there with. I think she gets it done. And I think it makes up. I think the card's going to be quite stale, but the fact that a Chinese girl is going to win in China, I think is going to give the UFC the impact they're looking for with the crowd and with the reaction after. China's going to get their first champion in the UFC, I believe. Other than Lyoto. Listen, yeah? Lyoto Machida is Asian. I don't care what anyone says. He says he's from Brazil. I don't think I've ever seen a more Chinese-looking Brazilian in my life. So she can be the second Chinese champion there ever was. Jesus Christ. Weili Zhang gets the job done over 5 rounds. I think she gets a decision. She may lose a couple rounds. Maybe go 3-2, 4-1. She does get it done though. I like Jessica Andrade. I feel like she's maybe gotten a bit lucky in her last few fights. You know, knocking out Kovacevic, you know. Where's that power come from? Catches Kovacevic perfectly on the chin. Well done. You caught a girl on the chin perfectly. Good job. Rose Namajunas outclassing her completely on the feet. Lands a weird slam that looks like a spike. That wasn't officially a spike because Rose was holding on to a submission, but weird circumstances yet again. I'm going to go with Weili Zhang. I think she gets the job done, and I think is a good underdog. And you guys should put your money on her. And if you don't win, and if she loses when you put your money on her, that's on you. You chose to do it. Shouldn't have listened to me. See you later. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. Goodbye.